Don't be a stranger in the night. Take a chance for some romance. Don't call me.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin, and for today's video we are going to be going through all the books on my summer TBR, so books that I am hoping to get to this summer. I have, I think, 15 books to get to, which is not an exhaustive list by any means. I definitely want to read more than 15 books, but these are books that have been on my TBR that I've had and owned for such a long time that I need to get to, and I feel like summer is the perfect time to read these books. These books are definitely going to be a priority for me to kind of work my way through over the summer, and a lot of these books are going to be on my physical TBR because I want to stop feeling guilty for buying more books and adding books to my TBR when I still have books from 2 years ago that I have yet to touch, and they're literally collecting dust. Some of these books are also books that are borrowed from the library. I think 1 or 2 of these books I don't have the physical copy of, so I'm going to wait to get that from my library or read it through Kindle Unlimited. So before we get started though, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. Let me know in the comments down below a book on your summer TBR, or a book that maybe you recognize on my TBR that's also on your summer TBR, or maybe a book that you're interested in reading over the summer. All right, let's get started. I don't even know where to start. So this book is part of a series. The series is not finished yet. It is a 7-book series, but 4 books are out, and I'm actually going to be doing a whole reading vlog and video for this book series, so I'm really excited. But it is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I have been wanting to read this book for such a long time, and I have been seeing so many like different booktubers and bookstagrammers and book talkers just reading this book and having such a good time reading it. I will say I have heard mixed things about this book. I think one of the controversial things people say about this book is that the main couple, so BJ and Magnolia, are very toxic for each other. They're not healthy. They do things to hurt each other. But that doesn't steer me away, because I just finished reading Devil's Night by Penelope Douglas, and if you know, you know. Those couples, I don't think anybody can be as toxic as Damon and Winter and those couples from that series. So I think I can handle a little bit of toxicity, especially if there's like a reason why they are toxic for each other and that they are doing things to obviously hurt each other, but they still keep coming back. Like, is their love worth all of the hassle and all of the damage and all of the pain that they're causing each other? I'm really interested to know how Jessa's gonna kind of tackle this complicated relationship, and I've heard so many good things about her writing as well, so I really want to just kind of get into that and form my own opinion, honestly. Especially when it comes to controversial books, I really want to be able to form my own opinion with it, so I'm really excited to get into it. I've also heard that this is very similar to Blair and Chuck from Gossip Girl, and I did watch Gossip Girl. I did not finish watching Gossip Girl, but I do remember the dynamic and relationship between Blair and Chuck, and I really liked it. So the main characters are in this cycle of toxicity and go back and forth with hurting each other. She dates other people to keep him at bay, and he sleeps with other girls to get back at her. But they keep crawling back to each other because their love is so strong. But their dysfunction is catching up to them. As the cracks start to show and the secrets start to surface, Magnolia and BJ are finally forced to face the formidable question they've been avoiding all their lives. How many loves do you really get in a lifetime? I'm excited to see how this goes. Again, I'm definitely going to be vlogging this, so you guys are going to be seeing how everything is. I bought the entire, well, not the entire series, but all the books in the series thus far. So we have Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, Magnolia Parks, Long Way Home, The Great Undoing by Daisy Hates. I said this when I got these books in the mail, but these covers are so gorgeous that even if I don't like this book or the series, I'm just going to keep them because they look beautiful on my shelf. I'm super excited to read this over the summer. I think it'll be super fun, and I'm actually going to be starting this, I think, today, because I wrapped up one of my other books. The next book I'm going to read this summer, before I show y'all this book, if you are a Colleen Hoover hater, you are welcomed here, but I like Colleen Hoover. I like her writing. It Ends With Us is a great book. All Your Perfects is also a really good book. Maybe Someday is also a really good book. I read It Ends With Us back in 2017 before TikTok came around and got their necks on it. So me and Colleen, we go way back. With that being said, I am going to plan on reading It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. So this is the sequel following It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is where we are able to get more of Atlas's side of the story and get to see more of Atlas as a character, especially in the present moment, and his relationship now with Lily as they kind of explore this new relationship, as well as Lily exploring co-parenting with Ryle, being a mother for the first time, all of these new things that she has to navigate, and kind of see where their relationship takes off and kind of the second part of their chapter of their lives. And I know a lot of people have a lot of mixed opinions on this. I was not super thrilled when I heard this was going to be announced, simply just because I felt like the way It Ends With Us ended, it didn't need a sequel. A sequel wasn't necessary. And if I'm gonna be real with you guys, and I'm sure a lot of people might share the same sentiment, I definitely felt like this book was a good cha-ching cash grab, but I'm still going to read it because I'm interested in the story, and I'm going to go into this book with a very open mind and just really wanting to see like what is left to right of this story, and seeing what Colleen Hoover has to add to the story of Atlas and Lily, and now again that Ryle is obviously still a part of their lives, so how he kind of fits into their relationship as a co-parent. The next book I have is Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams. This is not the first book by Denise Williams that I've read. I actually read her debut novel How to Fail at Flirting, and then her second full-length novel The Fastest Way to Fall, and Denise Williams is hands down like one of my favorite romance authors. I gave both of those books 5 out of 5 stars. She just writes really well written characters, and the love story is just so real and raw and vulnerable, and there's so much emotionality and intimacy, and it's done in a way where it's not like the only thing in their life is this love story and the only thing to this book and these characters is this romance between them, but they actually have a life outside of that, and they're so dynamic and they're so well thought out, and the struggles that they go through is not just struggles that pertain to the relationship, but struggles on an individual level and with other relationships that they have going on. So I really love the way that Denise Williams just approaches contemporary romance as an author, and I'm super excited to read this one because I know she has another one coming out in December, and I have yet to read this. So Do You Take This Man, from my understanding, it's enemies to lovers. RJ would never describe herself as romantic, but when she ends up officiating an unplanned wedding for a newly engaged couple, her life is turned upside down. The video of the ceremony goes viral, and she finds herself in the unlikely position of being a sought-after local wedding officiant. Spending her free time overseeing I-dos isn't her most strategic career move, but she enjoys it except for the type A dude bro wedding planner she's forced to work with. Former pro football event manager Lear is a people person, but after his longtime girlfriend betrayed him, he isn't looking for love. He knows how to execute events and likes being in control, so working with an opinionated and inflexible officiant who can't stand him is not high on his list of things he enjoys. The two are surrounded by love at every turn, and their physical attraction pulls them together despite their best efforts to stay at arm's length. Lear refuses to get hurt again, RJ refuses to let herself be vulnerable to anyone, but when it comes to happily ever after, their clients might not be the only ones saying I do. Interesting! The next book I have is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have been dying to get into a Kennedy Ryan romance book for such a long time. I just didn't know where to start. I know she has a lot of, I think, sports romances, but they've never really piqued my interest. But I remember I have been seeing this book all over Book Talk, Bookstagram. Everyone is saying like this is one of her best books. I think this is the book to start with. So their love was supposed to last forever, but when life delivered blow after devastating blow, Yasmin and Josiah Wade found that their love couldn't solve or save everything. It couldn't save their marriage. Yasmin wasn't prepared for how her life fell apart, but she's finally starting to find joy again. She and Josiah have found a new rhythm, co-parenting their 2 kids and running a thriving business together. Yet like magnets, they're always drawn back to each other, and now they're beginning to wonder if they're truly ready to let go of everything they once had. Oh my gosh, I'm really excited to read this. I've heard this is also very, very emotional. It's just such a riveting story and just so impactful and just such a good love story. I'm really excited to read this, and this cover is freaking gorgeous. The next book I've had this book on my bookshelf for way too long, and this is the book that I'm just like, this needs to be the book that I read out of all of these, because I've had this on my bookshelf for too long, and every single time I pick another book that's not this one, it just looks at me and it's like, it is Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn, and I have heard nothing but amazing things about this book. Like everyone who's read this book has said it is absolutely amazing. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's just such an amazing story. I've been dying to get into it. I don't know why I've been pushing it off for so long. So this follows Yinka, a 30-something-year-old woman who is British Nigerian, and all of her aunties keep asking her, Yinka, where is your husband? Essentially, people are in her business and people want to know why she's still single as a 30-year-old woman. And I guess it kind of explores like what it means to be single and 30 and, you know, maybe wanting to be in a relationship but not finding any luck with that. She believes on her own time she'll find love and she'll find that relationship that she wants, but obviously she's dealing with the pressures of people around her and her family and society, but also I think she might be dealing with some insecurities on her own. Her cousin gets engaged and she's on a mission to find a date to the wedding and maybe find herself a husband. I think this book is a mix of like contemporary women's fiction as well as a love story kind of woven into this as well. Oh my god. Emily Henry gave praise to this, period. So I know it's gonna be good. I know it's gonna be good. What did Emily say? Like Bridget Jones, Yinka is a lovable and relatable disaster, which is to say she isn't actually a disaster at all. This is gonna be a good one. I can already tell. Fortunately, I had to change out my battery, so I hope my angle is still looking correct. Okay, so the next book I have, since we were just talking about my girl Emily Henry, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like this is not a surprise. I feel like this is on everybody's summer TBR. I mean, literally look at this cover. Is it not giving summer vacation? Like, let's be so serious. I was actually not going to read this over the summer. I hadn't read Book Lovers yet until a couple days ago. I really like Emily Henry, and I like her approach to writing characters, and I like her approach to writing contemporary romances. Very similar to Denise Williams. But I read Book Lovers a few days ago, and it was just such a good story. Like, you guys are gonna hear me rave about it in my next video for my wrap up. I absolutely just fell in love all over again with Emily Henry, and I feel like with every book she puts out, she just continues to outdo herself as an author, and she just continues to set the bar higher and higher and higher. And I cried, I laughed, I had such a good time reading Book Lovers, so I immediately purchased Happy Place. I feel like this one, from my understanding with Book Lovers, it was definitely a romance, but it wasn't the main focus of the story, whereas this one for Happy Place, I feel like the romance might have a bigger presence in the story. So from my understanding, this is a second chance. They were a couple that they met in college. They broke up 5 months ago and still haven't told their best friends, but they're going on a friendship type of vacation together, and they don't, I guess, want to spoil it and tell their friends that they're no longer together. So they pretend to still be a couple with each other, trying not to notice how desperately they still want each other. They can't stand to break their friends' hearts, so they'll play their parts. After years of being in love, how hard can it be to fake it for 1 week in front of those who know you best? One of the main things I've heard about this book being so good is that the friendships within the story I've heard are just so amazing. And that's one thing I really love in a book, is when side characters or secondary characters really become such an essential piece of the story, an essential piece of the plot, that it's like their stories and their characterization and their involvement in this romance and in this book as a whole is just as important as the main characters. I feel like it's going to break me, and like I feel like I'm gonna cry, so I'm really excited. The next book I have is Homebodies by Tembe Denton Hurst. This book was a random pick actually at Books A Million. So I just went to Books A Million to see what books that they had. I don't even know if I was planning on buying anything, but I was just looking around the different aisles, and then I came across this cover. This cover is just gorgeous. Like, I was just immediately drawn to the cover, and then as I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting. So this is a debut novel about a young Black writer whose world is turned upside down when she loses her job in media, and her manifesto about racism in the industry goes viral. This is kind of just like a testament to those trying to be heard and loved in a world that refuses to make space, and introduces a standout new writer as well. I feel like this book is going to be such a good one to read over the summer, and it's just going to touch on a lot of very important topics. I just can't wait to read this. Also, the writer is absolutely gorgeous, literally so beautiful. So I'm super excited to get into this over the summer as well. The next book I have is called Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. This one right here, I feel like is probably going to be the one that crushes me the most. It's so short. I don't even think it's 200 pages. Yeah, it's not even 200 pages, but from everything that I've heard about this book, from everything that I've seen, this book is going to probably make me cry so hard, which I'm open to that. You know, I'm trying not to have a sad girl summer, but every now and then I need to be reminded that I have emotions and that I'm a human being. I've actually had this book for a while on my bookshelf, and then I saw, I think on Instagram, that this author recently just released a new book called Small Worlds, I believe. So I was like, okay, I need to read Open Water so I can get to Small Worlds and I can really catch up with this author, because I've heard nothing but amazing things about his writing. It's so poetic, and it's written with beautiful prose and just such an amazing story, such a heartfelt story. It touches on masculinity, Black masculinity, vulnerability, mental health. So Open Water is about two young people who meet at a pub in Southeast London. Both are Black British, both won scholarships to private schools where they struggle to belong. Both are now artists. He's a photographer and she's a dancer, trying to make their mark in a city that by turn celebrates and rejects them. Tentatively, tenderly, they fall in love, but two people who seem destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence. I feel like this is definitely going to be a heavy one, but I'm super excited to read it over the summer, and I feel like it's going to be a really good book to get into. The next book I have is a nonfiction, which I do not read much nonfiction. I think I have 2 nonfictions to read over the summer on my TBR. This one is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I have seen Bell Hooks so much on my feed. I feel like everybody who reads this book in particular, but any book by bell hooks, just goes through a transformation for life. And as somebody who reads a lot of romance, as somebody who loves reading about love stories and loves reading about love, it's so interesting that I am very hesitant to read a book talking about love a bit more directly and literally, and like what it means to be loved and what it means to love other people, to love yourself, to love in community, to love individuals. And I feel like this is such an amazing book from what I've heard that kind of brings a different perspective to what we know about love and how we conceptualize love, especially when it comes to romantic love and self-love. And it kind of just reframes a lot of what we know. I'm really excited to read this. I definitely feel like this is going to teach me a lot of things, and I feel like this is going to be a book that I feel more ready to read now than I did when I bought it. So I'm ready to be open going into this book and to really sit and learn from this author and from this writer. We're gonna keep it up with the nonfiction, my friends, and we're going to actually do a memoir. So this is Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, and I'm actually not very familiar with this person. So this is an actress and a stand-up comedian. But the reason why I chose this book, I've had this book on my shelf for a while, is the way that people have talked about this memoir. It really touched me. The way that people have talked about it is they've described it as not even really a memoir, but more of like a nonfiction fiction book. I've heard that it's very reflective, it's very emotional, it's very vulnerable. There's a lot of intricacies to who Jenny is as a person and the little weirds that make up her personality and make up who she is, kind of loving herself and loving who she is and embracing that. I don't know, the way that people talk about it, it just seems so magical and so beautifully written and just something that I feel like I would be able to really connect to. I've just heard really amazing things about it, and who knows, maybe after this I'll become a huge fan of Jenny Slate. I'm really excited to read this, and I feel like I'm gonna gain a lot from it. And literally somebody, George Saunders, this book is something new and wonderful. It made me remember I was alive. That's amazing. The next book I have is actually the only fantasy book I have in my TBR for the summer, which is kind of crazy because I used to be such a big fantasy girly, but I don't know, for some reason I'm just like afraid of starting a new series. But I've had this book on my bookshelf, again, like every other book I've mentioned, for too long, and I feel like I'm just ready to read it, and I feel like it'll be very exciting to read over the summertime. And I think there's 3 books out right now for this series, so I kind of want to catch up, especially if it's a book that I really like, and that is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I am super excited to read this because I have heard, again, with everything I feel like I've been saying, really good things about it. I have heard that the first book is not the best book and they get better as you go. The maturity of the characters and the content also increases as you get to the second and third book, because I don't know if this is YA or new adult or adult fantasy, really. So we have Emily and her twin sister are witches who live secretly among humans, and one night she finds that her sister is murdered. She sets out to find her sister's killer to then seek vengeance, and in doing so she meets Wrath, one of the princes of hell, who she's been warned about in tales since she was a kid. And it looks like she's going to strike a deal with him to help solve the mystery of the person who killed her sister. I've heard that Wrath is definitely, he's a lot of people's like book boyfriends, and I'm always looking for a new book boyfriend, especially in fantasy, because I feel like a lot of my book boyfriends are in contemporary romances and in fiction, but not in fantasy. So I haven't had a fantasy boyfriend in a long time, and Wrath might be the one. It sounds very interesting and very enticing. A Quest of Vengeance. I just feel like it's such an exciting book, and I cannot wait to read it. I'm gonna have such a good time. The next book I have is outside of my comfort zone, and it's historical fiction, and that is Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is so funny because I had zero interest in reading this book like until like a month ago, because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've only read 1 book by her, and that's 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I gave that book 5 out of 5 stars. Like, it was such a good book. I'm just so scared, like when I read an author for the first time and I have such a good experience reading like their first book, I'm always like, I don't want, like, I put them on a pedestal and I don't want them to like fall from the pedestal I put them in. So I've just like haven't read any of her other books out there. Like, I haven't read Malibu Rising, Daisy Jones and the Six. I haven't read anything else, and I wasn't even going to pick up Carrie, Soto is Back because it didn't seem like a book that would interest me. But one of my favorite booktubers, Sarah Crowley, read this book and she had really good things to say. Our tastes are like kind of similar, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. And it just seems like Carrie Soto is kind of like a badass character, and she is kind of maybe gives Evelyn Hugo vibes and just kind of being so authentically herself and not really caring about what other people have to say about her or how other people perceive her, as long as she's living in her truth and doing what she loves to do. So by the time Carrie retires from tennis, she is the best player the world has ever seen. She has shattered every record. She sacrificed nearly everything to become the best, with her father as her coach. Ooh, I wonder if it's gonna tap into that like father-daughter dynamic and relationship. But 6 years after her retirement, Carrie finds herself sitting in the stands of the 1994 US Open, watching her record be taken from her by a brutal, stunning British player named Nikki Chan. At 37 years old, Carrie makes a monumental decision to come out of retirement and be coached by her father for one last year in an attempt to reclaim her record. Even if her body doesn't move as fast as it did, even if it means swallowing her pride to train with the man she once almost opened her heart to. Oh my god, are we getting a romance? Is there like a little romance in here? What? Like her, he has something to prove before he gives up the game forever. In spite of it all, Carrie Soto is back for one epic final season. So essentially, from all of that, it seems like it's a story about a legendary tennis player who is trying to make a comeback and reclaim her name and her title, which I'm all here for. I think this is gonna be really good, so I'm excited to read this one. Okay, so the next 3 books I don't have physical copies of. One of the books I'm going to be reading on my Kindle because it's on Kindle Unlimited, and that is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Ekweke Emezi. This book is essentially Hot Girl Summer. When I think of Hot Girl Summer, this is the book that pops into my head because everyone who's read this book has been like, this book is so messy. It is so messy, and I'm like, you know what? I'm here for it. Every now and then you need characters that are not so like goody two-shoes, clean cut, but have some messiness. Like they're not perfect characters. I've heard that this book is comparable to Queenie by Candace Carty Williams. So if that's a book that you guys have read before, you may or may not like this. I have read Queenie. I didn't love Queenie, but I think people are comparing it and just in the sense of like characters who don't always make the best decisions, are quite messy. I feel like I'm more open to that now than I was when I read Queenie. So I feel like I'm going to be going into this book with a lot more open-mindedness than I did with Queenie. I felt like I did Queenie a bit of a disservice because I was just like, why is this girl making such bad decisions over and over again without realizing that like there might be a reason why she's making those bad decisions, and sometimes there isn't a reason and people just make bad decisions, and that is a story in itself to tell. This has been called a fresh and seductive novel about a young woman seeking joy while healing from loss. It's been 5 years since the accident that killed the love of her life, and she's almost a new person now. Yeah, it just seems like she's kind of like dating a bunch of different people, getting into relationships, situationships with different people after she had a major loss in her life, and kind of just navigating life after loss and healing, and also maybe finding love in the middle of it. I'm super excited to read this. I've previously read a book by this author and I absolutely loved it, and I knew I wanted to read more books by this author just because their writing is just so beautiful, and it really kind of just traps you into the story that you feel like nothing else is going on in your life except for the story that you're reading. I think this is also their first book in the romance genre. The cover is also really beautiful. I kind of want my own copy of it. I might get it. I don't know. We'll see. The next book I have, it's called Honey and Spice by Balu Babalola. First of all, this woman, I love following her on Twitter. She's just so funny, and every single thing that she posts, I'm like, yep, I agree. Yep, we are on the same page. She's just hilarious. So I'm excited to finally read this book because I have been eyeing it for such a long time, and I'm mad that I don't have a copy of it, and I kind of want to get a copy of it, but I'm going to try and get it through my library because I need to stop buying books. It's getting a bit ridiculous. So this book centers on a young Black British woman who has no interest in love and unexpectedly finds herself in a fake relationship with a man she warned other girls about. And this happens because she kisses him, a guy who she has publicly denounced and said is a super player, like, girls, you need to stay away from him. And she has her own presumptions about this guy, but as they spend more time together and learn more about each other, she opens herself up more to maybe something deeper. It seems like it's kind of like an enemies to lovers trope. I'm really excited because I've heard really good things about it, and I really want to like this book. Like, I really want to like this book. I think this is the last book on my summer TBR for this video, and that is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This book has been everywhere. Like, I saw this book pop off last year and I just was like, I don't know if it's for me. I don't know if it's something I'll be interested in, but everyone is talking about this book, and I'm just like, I feel like it's the perfect summer book. It has the word summer in it. It just seems like it'd be really interesting. I've also heard, however, that this book is comparable to Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I have read Love in Other Words, and I gave that book 3 out of 5 stars, and it's a second chance romance. But my issue with Love in Other Words, with second chance romances, there's a reason why the couple is no longer together. There's a reason why these characters haven't talked for a really long time. You're trying to figure that out throughout the whole book, is like why these two characters haven't talked. And with Love in Other Words, when we got to the end and figured out like why this couple broke up and why they, you know, aren't talking anymore, I didn't like it. I needed more context. I felt like things were left unsaid. So knowing that people are comparing Every Summer After to Love in Other Words, I'm like, I don't know. But I'm going into this with an open mind, as I go into all these books with an open mind. So for 6 summers through hazy afternoons on the water and warm summer nights working in his family's restaurant and curling up together with books, Percy and Sam had been inseparable. Eventually that friendship turned into something breathtakingly more before it fell spectacularly apart. When Percy returns to the lake for Sam's mother's funeral, their connection is as undeniable as it has always been. But until Percy can confront the decisions she made and the years she spent punishing herself for them, they'll never know whether their love might be bigger than the mistakes made in their past. Told over the course of 6 years and 1 weekend, every summer after is a big, sweeping, nostalgic look at love and the people and choices that mark us forever. It seems promising. We'll see. So those are all of the books that I am going to be reading for summer. Let me grab them. Oh my goodness. We have quite the stack. Oh my goodness. I don't even know if I can hold all of them. Oh my gosh. We have quite the stack of books to read for the summertime, and I am just like super excited to get to all of these books. And like, tell me this is not just like beautiful. Okay, that did not work. Tell me that these spines are not all just so beautiful. Like, look at that. Okay. Oh god, oh god, okay. But those are all the books I have to read for the summertime, or that's on my summer TBR. If you see any books on here that are on your summer TBR, please let me know which ones. If you've read any of these books, tell me how you feel about them. Tell me the real tea, be honest with me. So that's all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and to subscribe for more bookish content. I will be reading Magnolia Parks and doing a vlog on it like I said, so if you want to know what my thoughts are on that, please make sure to subscribe so you can see when that video goes up, as well as wanting to know my thoughts on any of these books. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!